you're doing when you're looking around like that, Jeff.
It's me trying to find myself.
That's what I thought.
All right, Entre Architect community, it's 4 p.m. Eastern, which means it's time for Context and Clarity Live. Thank you for joining us today. Today is the first day in a new chapter, an extended chapter of Context and Clarity Live. See some rolling in now. Just chilling on a snowy Thursday. Thank you. As you're joining us today, say hi wherever you are, whether you're on Facebook, whether you're on LinkedIn, Twitch. All of our Twitch fans, please let us know that you're out there. YouTube, wherever you are, say hi. Let us know that you're out there and let us know where you're joining the conversation from. As usual, the reason that we come to you every weekday at 4 p.m. Eastern is so that we can find clarity around the things that matter most to you, the architect. And it doesn't matter whether you're the employee of a firm or maybe you're dreaming of starting your own firm. You might have even circled a date on the calendar and said, you know what? This is the day that I'm going to start my own thing. So maybe February 1st, 2021 is your day on the calendar. Whatever your situation is, you may have had a firm for 5, 10, 20 years. You may be reimagining or rethinking what that firm could or should be. We come here to talk about the issues, the topics that matter most for the success of small firm architects just like you. So thanks for joining us today. It may look a little bit different to you today than it has in the past. Like I said, it's the new chapter.
Yeah.
That's right. We've got Catherine grooving along with me here today. Catherine McVeigh is my sidekick, my co-host now. She's really here to keep me out of trouble.
Well, I'm a little, I can't see. It just says Facebook user.
Yeah.
They're missing my light up necklaces that I wore at the holiday get together. That's a good question. I should have worn it today.
You should have.
Next week I'll wear them.
Should have worn it today, and I should have worn a Santa hat.
Yeah. Well, we can't really see who anybody is. Oh, Monroe Rod.
Yep, Monroe Rod. We can. Let me go over to Facebook here.
He's back. He's back from GameStop, so I'm glad you're keeping that under control, Rod.
Are you shorting it or are you buying it? I bet Rod is. Rod's buying it. Yeah, he's buying it.
My son tried to explain it to me last night. I mean, I get it. I get the whole, but the overall mission, I think. But anyway, that's not our topic for today.
No, it's not. That's the Robin Hood topic. We'll get to that one day. But it's good banter anyway. We have, like I said, we have Catherine. She's my co-host. Every Thursday from here on out, this is what it's going to look like. Catherine and I will host what we're going to call Context and Clarity Live. Calling it live. Obviously, it's live. We're live every day. But if you're seeing us on Facebook right now, hello to the Entre Architect Community Facebook group. If you're seeing us on LinkedIn right now, hello. Thanks for joining us via LinkedIn. If you're seeing us on YouTube or Twitch, hello to all of you as well. We're streaming to the entire world right now. We're trying to break the internet. The whole world.
I mean, technically, every day you're streaming to the whole world.
Yeah, but this is more of the world, though.
It feels like more of the world.
It does. And it's great because one of the reasons that we wanted to develop this format that we're in right now, and it's going to be this way every Thursday from here on out, is so that we can meet people where they are, right? The Entre Architect community, if you are not familiar with it, is, it's a Facebook group. It's a private Facebook group for architects only, almost 7,000 members there. And it's a great community. It's a very engaged community, but it's also within the walls of that community. And we know there are folks out there that could be part of this community. We know that there are folks out there that we're here to support. We want to support. We want to build the community even larger than it is. All of the topics that we cover, like I said at the beginning, are the need to know topics for the success of people just like you. So why not meet you wherever you are? You may not be a fan of Facebook. I'm not. Catherine, are you a fan of Facebook?
I was.
You were? Okay.
I'm kind of lukewarm on it now.
Okay. That's fine.
I mean, I think for a business, it's really difficult because they don't post what you post. They don't put it out there. So.
Right.
Yeah. I'm not a fan from a business owner's point of view.
Sure. Yeah. And I don't, the only thing that I do on Facebook is this show. and participate in the conversations inside the Entre Architect community. And so I know there are a lot of people out there, and I'm going to take a quick pause here to say hi really quickly because I see my friend Krista Harris pop up. Hi, Krista. It's been a minute. She's over on LinkedIn, but the one of the reasons to do this was to be able to meet people where they are, whatever their platform is. And so, I guess to that end, if you have a suggestion, hey, why aren't you here? Or what about this platform? Let us know that. We might be able to incorporate this into our live simulcast for a future episode. We could try that. We could talk about that. Absolutely. Okay. So to extend the idea of what the format will be, obviously Catherine and I are here, and we're here with all of you. And we, as usual, we want your comments. We want you to be a part of this conversation, but we will also, every Thursday afternoon, we'll have a special guest with us, a guest expert that will give us the ability to dig deeper into whatever the topic of the day is. And so I think for many of you, today's guest will be no stranger. We'll bring him in just a minute, but that's the general format. So we're here. We're not just inside the Facebook group. So anybody that's used to just being in the Facebook group, I just want you to be aware of that. Your comments are outside of the group, which is fine, but don't say anything you wouldn't say in public. that's your warning. But we'll continue the conversation as we always do. Catherine.
Yeah.
I know you. I see you on TikTok all the way, all the time.
Right, yeah. I'm almost TikTok famous. Yeah.
Where are you?
Where am I?
Yeah, where are you?
I'm in Massachusetts. You mean that's where I am in the world? I'm in Arlington, Massachusetts, and that's why I usually log into this group. It's hello from Massachusetts. So
excellent.
Yeah, hello.
So Catherine is I'm going to call her the captain of the Massachusetts posse because
nobody else can speak up right now.
That's right.
Hear about that later.
That's right. And now it's your fault, I guess. But
yeah, it wasn't my fault. Yeah.
But we regularly have a good crowd from Massachusetts, and that's one of the things that I enjoy most about these conversations is that we'll have a great crowd from Massachusetts. We'll have folks from all over the United States, but then we always jump an ocean or two, and a lot of these conversations extend. Let's start in California. They go from California to the East Coast of the United States and over to the UK and down into Africa. Middle East sometimes, and quite often Philippines, Australia, New Zealand. So we really do wrap the globe.
We do
with these conversations, and I think it's also important that we point out that my perspective, Catherine's perspective probably as well. I don't want to speak for her, so she can correct me if I'm wrong, but we've got a pretty United States centric perspective. So if anything that we're talking about is different wherever you are, if you have a different perspective for whatever reason, make sure you speak up and let us know that, because we want to include that in the conversation. This is really about supporting a global community here. So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to speak up. Don't be afraid to ask questions. That helps us dig deeper into these topics. Obviously, we're going to be respectful of each other. We're going to have
you and I will be.
We'll try, but they need to be. The audience needs to be. And we're going to do our best to dig into and figure out what matters most on each of these topics that we cover. And so today's topic is really about what I wanted to talk about. And I often start with a question is, how do we build community? Right. And obviously from the name, we know Entre Architect community. There's going to be a lot of architects in this conversation, but not everybody's necessarily going to be an architect. Many of our guests that we have will not be architects. Today will be an exception to that. But how do we build community? Wherever you are, whoever you are, whatever you do, that's the question. How do we support each other? Because that's a big deal. That's one of the big goals of Entre Architect community. How do we support each other? How do we build a better profession? And again, if you're an architect, how do we support individual architects? How do we support the profession of architecture as a whole? If you're something else, if you're an attorney, if you're an HR professional, wherever you are, whatever your context is, how do we do that? How do we support each other? Those are some pretty big questions in the context of the last, again, this is a very US centric statement because the timeline varies depending on where you are in the world. But around March 16th or so last year, things started to shut down around here. We've had a lot of things going on. We've had a lot of social unrest, political unrest, pretty crazy election season. Pretty crazy. Yeah. And of course, all of that on top of an economy that has been a roller coaster ride and the global pandemic. So I think it's really important for us to take a step back and say, how do we build a community? And that's really been the goal, number one, from the very beginning of Entre Architect, which is founded by Mark R. LePage, hint, hint. And definitely from the beginning of this Context and Clarity, which we launched on April 6th of 2020. So with that, why don't we introduce our guest today?
Who would be the perfect guest for this would be Mark LePage. He built a really great community.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe we can get him.
Maybe we should give him a call. Okay. Or I'll just click this button here.
Oh, there he is.
Look who it is. It's like magic.
It is like magic.
Hey. Hello.
Mark R. LePage, welcome. Thank you for joining us on Context and Clarity Live today.
Thanks for having me here. This is exciting. This production must have some budget because that is the coolest green room I've ever been in.
Yeah.
Did you get the red M&Ms?
All you can eat red M&Ms. They have the soda fountain on the wall. It's cool. It's a great place.
You need to take a better look at your agreement because you're not supposed to say that out loud because our future guests may have expectations.
The same thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, they're all going to get their own thing, right? Because red M my agreement, so I expected them.
Okay. All right. Well, welcome. I'm glad you enjoyed the red M&Ms. For those of you that don't know, I think everyone that is joining us from the Entre Architect Community Facebook group, I'm guessing you know who Mark LePage is. If you are not part of the Entre Architect community, if you're not inside the Entre Architect Community Facebook group right now, let me introduce Mark R. LePage to you. Mark and I have been friends for a long time. Mark he's the founder of Entre Architect. I'm going to let him get into that on his own here in just a minute. But what I want to say about Entre Architect is that what started as an idea, what started as a blog and a podcast and so on and so forth, like many of the things that we see right now. I mean, somebody may start a TikTok channel right now and grow it into a community. And many people are, I guess we should say, in the present tense. What Mark started with Entre Architect has grown into a true community, and it is a global community for small firm architects primarily. But like Catherine and I talked about a little bit at the very beginning of this conversation today, we're looking beyond the walls of the Facebook group. We're looking beyond the walls of the Entre Architect Academy to the greater community of architects around the world, small firm and large firm and everything in between. So with that, again, Mark, thank you for joining us. Can you give us a quick synopsis of Entre Architect, where it's been and how we got here today?
Yeah, I'm really happy to be on this first episode of Context and Clarity Live because it all started with the community. And we wanted to talk about community today. And Entre Architect started with a community. It started with a personal blog that I started writing way back early 2000s called Entrepreneur Architect. It was my own personal thoughts where I just, wrote down the things that I was thinking about. And in that blog, formed a community in the comments. There were architects who were searching for information on business and success, and there was nothing on the internet back in 2007 or so when I launched that. And in the comments every day or every week when I posted in that blog, architects would comment. And those comments, those people, they would show up every time I posted, just like they do today in Context and Clarity every day on your show. And that community grew and grew and grew. And that personal blog became a mission because of that community. I was encouraged and supported by that community to push that blog to become something bigger and better than what it was, because it was really just my own personal project. And December 12th, 2012, many of you heard this story over and over again, so I'm not going to go through the whole story. But my 12-12-12 project, I launched EntreArchitect.com and the Entre Architect podcast the same day with a mission and a passion to grow a platform for small firm architects to learn better business, to build better businesses so we can be more successful. Because at the end of the day, if we can be more successful, more financially successful, then we can be better architects. And architects are the ones that build the world. And so we are directly impacting the world in a positive way. And if I can help each one of the individual architects of the world to be more successful, then I'm impacting the world. And that's my mission. And so that has grown into Entre Architect. The Facebook group has grown tremendously. I'm so happy and proud of what that group has become. It's grown way beyond me, which is one of my goals, is for the entire platform to grow way beyond me. I want it to be something that will be here for generations of architects. And I see the progress. Every year it continues to grow and continues to build. And this show, Context and Clarity, which, as you described, started from this idea when the pandemic hit. We just need to be there for the community. There needs to be something where during that time of crisis where nobody really knew what was going on, if we could create something that would be sort of something that people can depend on, that it's going to happen every day, then we'll do that. And we were there to help support the community then, and you took it over very quickly. It was something that I started like the first week, and then we started continuing to grow it. Once we realized this was going to be a permanent thing, I asked you to take over, and you have done a fantastic job ever since. And it's grown into this. And now we're talking about the next phase, which I would love to talk about how we ended up talking about growing it into this, but I'm going to shut up or else I'll talk for the next hour.
No, that's okay. And you're exactly right. I mean, I'm kind of scrolling through the comments right now, and we'll address some of the technology and the ins and outs of what we're doing here. But what's amazing is that right now I see in the upper left corner of my screen, it looks like there's 32 people joining us live right now, which is amazing. I'm scrolling and of course I'm seeing a lot of people, a lot of our friends over in the Entre Architect Facebook, our Entre Architect community Facebook group. But I'm also seeing some of those same folks that we see over on YouTube, in LinkedIn. I don't think I've seen anybody on Twitch yet. I did see a comment that I want to address. Someone was asking about the link to find this on LinkedIn. So let me try to explain how all this works really quickly, as simply as I can. So right now we're streaming to Facebook, which is the Entre Architect community. We're streaming to LinkedIn Live. So if you want to find it on LinkedIn, you have to find me on LinkedIn. LinkedIn Live is, they've been rolling it out for almost 2 years now, and it's still sort of in its infancy. It's very hard to get access to LinkedIn Live, so you have to find me. So find Jeff Eccles. The other Jeff Eccles is easy to find, as a chiropractor from Austin, Texas. That's not me. His hair is different.
That's the only difference.
That's the only difference. If you want to find it on YouTube or Twitch, go to the Entre Architect channel on YouTube, go to the Entre Architect channel on Twitch. And that's how you would find this on the different platforms. But like Mark said, we decided to start this chapter. We eventually decided to start this chapter after April 6th, April 6th, 2020, launching Context and Clarity. And I've mentioned, if you've been on before, I mentioned the spreadsheet every once in a while, right? It's got all the topics. And as Catherine and I started talking, and as the three of us, Mark and Catherine and I, started planning for this launch, one of the things that we wanted to do was make sure that we were picking some of the most interesting and most popular, most asked for topics from Context and Clarity. So we went through and in my spreadsheet, I have a column that shows how many comments came in. This started out as a half-hour endeavor, by the way. Catherine,
I remember that,
knows this very well.
Yep.
Catherine gave me Catherine gave me a hard time every time. She said,
it's time for you to go, Jeff. You have something else to do, I'm sure. And then it became an hour long, and then sometimes we still go beyond an hour.
Sometimes we do. And you know who first made the suggestion of making it an hour long?
John Kenny.
It was Catherine.
It was me.
It was Catherine. Yeah, it was you.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah,
of course.
She said,
I forgot about that.
Yeah, she said, you can't stop talking. You may as well make it an hour. So
you listened to me, Jeff. That's pretty amazing.
I did. So if you look at that spreadsheet and you look at the number of comments for each one of these over almost 10 months now, John Kenny keeps me in line there because he marks it on his calendar. Here very soon, we'll hit the 10-month mark. Very, very quickly, even with the adjustment for inflation, even for the adjustment of going from half hour to an hour, the number of comments, which really represents the amount of engagement that we have in these conversations, it just started to skyrocket. And a couple of weeks ago, we had a topic. It was a topic on gender roles in the world of architecture. We had 300 and some comments in an hour, which is, think about that for a minute. What is that? No, that's more. Over 5 comments a minute, I think,
every
something
20
like
seconds,
that.
A new comment.
Yeah. So that's a lot of engagement, which means, and when this happens over and over and over, day after day after day, because I come to you every weekday at 4 p.m. Eastern, do this day after day after day, that means that with all of these people coming back, we have a community here. We have a community of people. And one of the things that I appreciate most about it is that every single person that comes to these conversations comes, of course, to ask questions. That's a vitally important part of it, but also to share experiences, to share stories, to answer other people's questions and support each other and continue to build this community. And just like Mark said, it started with him, but Entre Architect and Context and Clarity are runaway trains at this point in a good way. And so I really appreciate that.
Do you see this comment? Can I push the comment thing?
Please. Yeah. Boom.
I thought this was an interesting comment, and I thought the same thing. Maybe that's why I thought it was interesting. That it meant that it was between architects rather than the other meaning.
Yeah, I love that.
I do too, yeah. Because that's what it really is to me. This is a community where I come and talk to my peers about whatever, or hear what they have to say, or questions they have, or things that are bothering them. It's important to have that, especially when we work by ourselves. Those of us who work by ourselves, having a community of other people to run things by makes all the difference.
Yeah, it really does. And I think that's a really interesting take on it. I like that take. And I think you're exactly right. One of the benefits that I have as the host of this is I can host this and people say, thank you for hosting this and good job and all those things. And that's appreciated, but all I have to do is show up. Right. And everybody is adding their thoughts and experiences and sharing all of those things. And somebody asked me at one point, it's like, how do you how do you know all of this? How can you be an expert on, this topic? I'm not at all. It's everybody else. It's this, like you said, it's this conversation between architects, between whoever is on this call right now. And I'm just the guy in the version that's just me on the screen. I'm just the guy that's juggling the comments. That's all.
That's not an easy thing to do, though, Jeff. But that's not all you do. But still, that is a big, hard thing to do. So,
well, if you're not careful, it might break your brain. But
quite literally.
Well,
it's got
anyway,
bills to show it.
So,
but go ahead.
Well, so let's talk a little bit about how we're going to be incorporating guests in the future.
Yeah, why don't you talk about the whole structure, like how the daily conversation ties into this weekly conversation and the podcast, because there's a lot of moving parts.
There are a lot of moving parts. We've added a lot of moving parts all of a sudden, which was the plan. Starting Monday, February 1st, another new thing that's going to happen is the Context and Clarity podcast is going to be published. And so every weekday at 4 p.m. Eastern, I host Context and Clarity. So 4 days a week, it's just inside the Entre Architect community Facebook group. Those are Context and Clarity conversations. Every Thursday, just like you're seeing today, is Context and Clarity Live, where Catherine and I will host a guest that'll help us, like I said, will help us dig into one topic. It's always one topic every day. Thursdays, we'll have an expert to help us dig even deeper into a topic. Every weekday, the Context and Clarity podcast will come out. It'll be a very short form podcast that will
keep it short, Jeff. Don't get into longer and longer every day, because that's just going to end up being a lot of work for you.
I'll just be on
5 minutes. I'm just going to remind you.
I appreciate that. I may need it. Otherwise, I'll just have to live on Twitch all the time.
Just leave it on.
Leave it on.
Get your cameraman and
exactly
follow you around.
Can I just say, for a long time, I thought we were going to be on Switch, which is like a little Game Boy type thing. I thought, why would it be on Switch? That's just weird. And then I realized it's not. It's Twitch. It's a totally different thing.
Maybe we can add that. Be on a tiny little screen or something.
Yeah, right. That's what I thought we were doing.
I will do my best to keep it at 5, 6, 7 minutes, something like that. But what that podcast will be is a recap of yesterday. So if you missed yesterday's episode, you can go to the podcast, get a recap of that episode, and also get a preview of today's episode. So it'll be this continual loop. So today is a recap of yesterday and a preview of the upcoming, because it'll come out in the morning. So it'll be a preview of the live conversation that'll happen at 4 p.m. Eastern. And so we'll have this continual loop going on. And really, it's just an effort to, get this, again, back to the spreadsheet. There's an incredible list of topics on that spreadsheet. It's an MBA course or something. I don't know what it is, but it's the attempt and the ability to keep all of the topics that matter most to architects front and center all the time. And if you need to consume it in 5 minutes in the morning, boom, there's the podcast. If you are willing and able and maybe need to jump into the live conversation to figure something out, we've got it for you at 4 p.m. Eastern every afternoon. If you want to know more and you want to hear a guest expert talk about it, boom, Thursday on any channel that you want to be on to consume it. And that's really what we're trying to do here, is just do everything humanly possible to support and technologically possible to support the community of architects and beyond, professionals.
Yeah. And then we also we get an outsider's point of view on things too, which would be interesting to talk to. Like, what are some of the subjects that we have coming up? Do you, off the top of your head?
Well, off the top of my head. So tomorrow, as a preview for tomorrow, we're going to talk about red flag alerts. What happens when I don't know, you're meeting with a prospective client and you notice some red flags, or you're on the job site, you see some red flags. We can address red flags in any context you want. Next week, we have topics like what's a good way to have my contracts reviewed by a professional at a reasonable cost. So we'll talk about the ins and outs of your contracts. Do you have an attorney? How much does that cost? Do you have your insurance carrier? Things like that. We've got another ethical question next week. What happens when you are talking to a client, or what happens when you're representing your firm with a client, potential client or contractor, and they say, no, I don't want to hire your firm. I want to hire you. What happens in that scenario? What do you say to that?
Well,
And
that doesn't
then
happen if you are your firm, so that's one
it
solution.
does not happen if you are
Yeah.
if you are a
Yeah.
sole proprietor, certainly.
Well, what I kind of meant, Jeff, was on this live thing, what are our future?
That's a good
What
question
kind
as
of
well.
guests would we have on here? And
Right.
also, it's going to be a podcast in itself later.
It is. Right. Exactly. And so in that daily podcast, these sessions will be published as well. So as a podcast. So there's that layer of it too. That's a good point. Next week, Thursday of next week, we'll have Evan Troxel, who is the host of the podcast Troxel. He's the co-host of ArchiSpeak. He's very focused on technology in architecture. And so one of the things that we're going to explore next week with Evan is, and everybody get prepared, come up with your questions, start thinking about what you want to ask and what you want to talk about with Evan. But we're going to start with the idea of exploring how technology is changing architecture, changing the practice of architecture, and who's driving it. I think that's an interesting twist on it. We will also in the future have, got to click to a different tab. Sorry. We'll have guests like scrolling, Seth Godin, who some of you have heard
Godin. I haven't heard about that.
of.
I hope he's good, because you've really set my expectations for this guy, Jeff.
I know. I've been working on Catherine on this one. Seth Godin, in his Akimbo podcast, had an episode on January 11th, I think it was, called The Architecture of Architecture. I encourage everybody to go listen to that. You may love it. You may hate it. You may love it and hate it. We'll have Mike Michalowicz, the author of Profit First and Fix This Next, among a lot of other books. We're going to have Brian Kramer, who is the author of Human to Human and most recently Shareology. So we're trying to put together quite a list and a wide variety so that we can get lots of different perspectives on all of these topics that we cover, that we'll cover every day and every week in this format. So that's a little sneak peek of what's coming up. Mark, let me ask you, why context and clarity? Why start something like this?
Yeah. The daily conversation that you have every day since April has become important, right? It's not just a comment, it's not just a topic that you're talking about that doesn't really matter, right? They're important topics, and it's an important conversation. And so that conversation, we thought could be expanded, right? That the broader community of architects and other professionals could relate to the things that we're talking about.
Right.
And also, you and I were talking before we made the decision to grow Context and Clarity beyond the Facebook group, which was a big decision, right? Because it is what it is. It's important to the people who are in that group, and it's perfect the way it is, right? And so one of the things that we were talking about with you as the host and the creator of Build Your Brand, and the director of brand strategy at Entre Architect, you and I are strategizing. We're thinking about how can we continue to grow Entre Architect? How do we continue to have an impact on the profession worldwide. And one of the things that you were kept bringing to that conversation between you and me was architect the brand. This idea that build your brand was really about individual architects building a better brand. Architect the brand, the idea, the concept of architect the brand was that big brand, the profession's brand. How do architects, or how does the world perceive architects? What's the story that people say about architects in the profession? What do we do and how do we do it? How do we impact the world? And so we were seriously considering starting another podcast called Architect the Brand, doing this video thing and letting, doing context and clarity in the Facebook group, doing Build Your Brand podcast, doing Build Your Brand workshops, then doing this Architect the Brand and Architect the Brand. And it just started becoming all these different things, which would have been impactful too. But through the development of those ideas, we said, well, why don't we take context and clarity and expand it and allow Architect the Brand and Build Your Brand become part of context and clarity? That the conversation that you're having on a daily basis inside the Facebook group, we can take it one day out of the Facebook group and go deeper, right? Because you can't go super deep, as we all know, anybody who participates in that daily call, you can have lots of comments and you can talk about it and you can go pretty deep, but you can only go as deep as that format allows you to go. But when you pull it out of that and you bring in an outside guest that is an expert in a specific topic, now you can go deeper and you can ask the expert some questions that may be able to bring some more context and more clarity to that specific topic. And so that's the idea, is to be able to take what we have with that special thing that's happening in Facebook. And if you're not a member of the Facebook group, you should be. If you're an architect, you should go to entrearchitect.com/group and participate in that daily 4:00 call. But every Thursday now we'll be here. Well, I won't be here, but you and Catherine will be here with a guest, and you can go deep. And then we can take that information and we can broadcast it even further through a podcast. And so that daily podcast is a way that we can loop the daily call and intro the daily call. So while you're eating your Cheerios in the morning, you could be listening to Jeff's daily podcast every morning. It could be part of your routine. So subscribe it and do it. It's not yet ready to subscribe. I saw a comment earlier if it's going to be on Spotify. Yes, it will be. It will be on Apple. It'll be in Google Podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Podcasts, Stitcher. It will be everywhere podcasts are. Entre Architect podcast and Build Your Brand podcast are already there. And so Context and Clarity will be a new podcast feed called Context and Clarity. You'll be able to search for it. We'll be promoting it in the Facebook group and all over, so you'll find it. But that's the idea, is to be able to go deeper and to really tackle some of these really big, really difficult topics, and take them even further and really make an impact on the lives of architects so we can do the thing we do.
Yeah. It's interesting, as you were talking, I was scrolling through some of the comments, and I want to let everybody know that one of the challenges that we have in this format, because we're working with a software called Restream, it's not Restream's fault, but in order to stream the way we are, we're working with a software that's outside of Facebook. And so because the Entre Architect Community Facebook group is a private group, it doesn't allow your names to be attached to your comments the way that we see them in Restream. So
I can tell who's writing them, though.
Yeah, Catherine knows, but what we see is Facebook user, and so I apologize if I don't recognize somebody just based on their comment. But
can I say something about the comments? Okay,
please.
So I this is my first time on this platform using it, and so I put not too personal in response to, is it too personal for me to say I like dark chocolate? And I don't know if it just keeps showing up not too personal every minute and a half, and then I feel like maybe that's like a warning, don't forget, don't get too personal. That's not what that means. I don't know how that happened.
Be as personal as you want to be.
You can do that.
Always be as personal as you want to be.
And I noticed our friend get famous or whatever it was, Twitch showed up, big followers.
Nice.
So we have
Fun.
our Twitch follower was here, I noticed.
Right
We
on.
do. That's exciting.
Yep.
That's good. And I also want to say that dark chocolate is never too personal. And if you need my address, just
Send
hit
it
me
all
up.
to Jeff because I'm a milk chocolate person.
Oh no.
I don't know. We'll talk about that later.
Yeah, Mark was talking about some of the topics and being able to go deeper in the limitations of the daily just inside the group there. But one of the things that's amazing, this has come up in a couple of the comments as I've been scrolling, the topic of gender roles that we covered about maybe 2 weeks ago now. It was on a Friday. A couple of comments popped up on that, and one of the Facebook users, and again, I apologize, I don't know who said it, but they said the gender role context and clarity continues to get new comments. These are living documents, and that's exactly right. That's one of the real, even though we are limited because of that format, they do live on inside, and these shows will also live on inside LinkedIn and inside YouTube and inside Facebook and Twitch for a limited time, at least. You can continue to comment, and you can and watch and rewatch and things like that. And so they do become these living resources. And I love that about these conversations, because somebody, for instance, if you're in Facebook, if it's been 2 weeks and someone comments, that conversation may pop right back up to the top of your feed. Right. So I really love that.
I was wondering if anyone has any questions about what we're going to do. Does anybody have any concerns or questions, whether they're technical or you're just worried about the Facebook group changing? Anything? Do you have any questions that we might be able to answer here or follow up with? Post them in the comments.
Well, here's one interesting comment I felt. I mean, of course, they're all very interesting. A lot of them were by Chocolate Pie, but that it is interesting that we're going, in order to get deeper, we're broadening it rather than making it a smaller, more intimate community. So
yeah, that's a good point. The most important aspect of trying to go deeper, of course, is bringing in our guest expert every, once a week. And, to the point of seeing changes, and I know a lot of you are, some of my regular friends from Context and Clarity, you're used to me reading all the comments, or at least as many of the comments as I can get to in an hour. And that obviously is not going to be able to happen anymore, but
only on Thursday, it won't be able to happen.
Right. Only on Thursday. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday will be it's the same as it ever was.
No change at all. And that's the only place it's happening. So the Context and Clarity that exists at Facebook now will remain like that for as long as we are alive.
Yeah, exactly. So, we'll have that recognition 4 days a week. We'll have to be more selective in the questions and comments that we present to the guest, on Thursdays, which is another reason that we will announce the Thursday topic earlier. It won't just be Thursday morning. I'm going to try to announce them every Monday morning. And Catherine had a great idea as we were working on this yesterday or the day before. I'm still kind of researching it. We've talked about having a call-in line, and we could certainly do that. That has its own challenges, obviously, but we're working on a system where you could call and leave a message, basically, that could then be part of the conversation. So trying to find every outlet that we can to get people engaged and get people to the guests. And like Mark said, if you have concerns or questions, go ahead and put them in the comments, no matter where you are. Twitch, if you're on Twitch, put them in the comments. For the one or two of you that aren't on Twitch, you could put it in YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn.
You know what I find really heartwarming is, now that you said that, people are saying who they are as they make the comments. Yeah. I just love that. So I
That's
see that
excellent.
Tim and John and Leslie are asking or commenting. So, and today's Thursday, by the way. Who wants to know what day it was today?
That was
I
Jay.
know the answer to that question.
Yeah. I have no doubt that the community will adapt to this very, very quickly. That's never my concern. Just the speed that the community picked up context and clarity, right? April 6th, start date. Within, I'd have to look back at the spreadsheet, but within maybe 2 weeks, it had moved from half hour to an hour. Within another week, we're regularly having 100 or more comments as part of the conversation. And then when we hit on some tougher conversations, some maybe more controversial, I don't know if that's exactly the right word, but then we,
Hot topics, we get more comments.
The hot topics, that's a good way to put it. So, and as always, if you ever have any comments or any topic ideas, suggestions, let us know that. Message me on Facebook, on LinkedIn, because we want to make sure that we're covering the topics that you're interested in.
Jefferson Nunez says that asks is there a way to share comments across all streams so that it's visible in case they're not discussed, so other people can see those comments.
That was not the one I wanted to. It just is moving. See, I can only do that. That's how I can share it across all of the platforms.
Yeah. The overlay. There we go. So if we do that, that's a good question, because we were debating this, amongst the team the other day. Do you like this format?
Yeah.
Because in this way, you will see all the comments as they come in. It takes up a lot of real estate, obviously, but who needs to see my head that big? Nobody.
I'm happy being smaller for sure.
So if you like the comments on the video screen, say yes, and if you don't like them, say no.
Or how about say yes? I like the comments on the screen, so we'll know what you're saying yes or no to.
Yes.
And is it possible for us to? I mean, I'll ask a technical question later about the comments. I wish I could like them though, because if I usually I'm able to like comments. So just technically speaking.
Well, you could open up Facebook and like the ones on Facebook directly.
I could, but that's going to involve 2 browsers, and I didn't prepare correctly for that.
Yeah. As you can tell, somebody said keep the Barry says keep the big head.
So does that mean no comments?
That means no comments. Big head.
Big head. Okay.
Hey, if you want to see big head, go follow Jeff on TikTok.
Yeah. Exactly.
TikTok is just his head.
Yeah.
Right, but it's a smaller phone. I usually watch Jeff
That's
on.
True. So
my
I
phone.
guess it's a big picture on a small device.
I was just talking about the big head, your big face that I see on my monitor
You and your big face.
That's what it was. So, we'll get into some trivia. Does anybody know the band Big Head Todd and the Monsters? Since we're talking about big heads.
No, but maybe we get them to do our theme music.
Maybe so. Yeah, there's the Max Headroom comment. I was waiting for that one. Somebody asked about what platform, and I was trying to figure out who asked that question. So I apologize who that for not knowing who that was. But you can watch this on Facebook if you're a member of the Entre Architect Community Facebook group. You can watch this on LinkedIn. Just find me on LinkedIn. Send me a connection request. I'm happy to accept that. It'll pop up as me on LinkedIn. Over on YouTube, go to the Entre Architect YouTube channel. And for the vast majority of you who are on Twitch, just look for Entre Architect and you can watch it via Twitch as well. And ironically, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, this is more in the spirit of context and clarity to me, because it's like my normal experience would be looking at the comments going by and hearing you So it's just kind of more similar to what we usually do, I think.
Yeah. And maybe this is, we're getting a lot of yeses to this. So maybe this is the way.
But yes, I
to
can't
do
remember.
it.
Was yes, keep the comments, or yes, you're big
yes,
head?
keep the comments.
Yes, keep the comments.
And just to reiterate, it's saying Facebook user because the Facebook group is a private group, and so therefore Facebook doesn't allow us to post your names on it because it's a private group. So the comments can be there, but we don't know who those comments are unless you put your name on who you are before you write the comments.
Right. And that's just a Facebook rules thing. It has nothing to do with any other platform. It's just a Facebook thing. Someone asked about YouTube, and you should be able to comment if you're watching on YouTube Live, which is where this is streaming to YouTube right now. You should be able to comment. And I have seen some comments come in through YouTube. So yes, you should be able to comment from whichever platform you're watching from: Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, or Twitch. There you go. Dawn Porta. Hello. See you.
There you go.
Very good. Thanks, Dawn.
Hi, Dawn. I have another question for the group.
Yeah. Ask it.
Guests. So Seth Godin's coming. Mike Michalowicz is coming. We have some big names on the way. This is where we want to be. We want to get to the biggest names out there. So who do you want us to talk to? Who do you want Jeff and Catherine to bring on the show to dive deep into some of these topics? Post those in the comments. And they could be anybody, right? They could be people we all know or people that we should know.
Yeah. Yeah. You say that, and going back to the idea of architect the brand, and when Mark probably wouldn't have said this, so I'll say it. When we started talking about the idea of architect the brand, I said, Mark, do you really want to be a part of this? Because I think there's some great risk in it, because I really want to push buttons. The way that I view this, having been in this profession for 30 years now, I guess, almost 30 years, 27 years, something like that. I think the biggest threat to architects and to the profession of architecture is the amount of introspection. As insular as we are, that is the biggest threat. We have to be looking outside. We have to understand what other people think about architects.
Yeah.
Any of you that have heard me talk about branding before know that I love the Jeff Bezos quote, where he says, "Your brand is what other people say about you if you're not in the room." Now, when I share that quote, there are some people that push back and say, "Oh, Jeff Bezos, I don't like Jeff Bezos for whatever reason." Fine. Marty Neumeier, Google him. Marty Neumeier is basically the godfather of modern brands. He says the exact same thing. Your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room. He's slightly different. He changes a couple of words probably. Maybe Bezos stole the quote from Marty. I don't know.
Well, and people don't seem to say good things about Jeff Bezos when he's not in the room. So
exactly.
I don't know what that means.
So that's part of his personal brand.
Yeah.
Right.
But think about that for a second. What do people say about architects? What do people think about architects? That is quite literally the brand of the profession of architecture. And that's one of the reasons I said to Mark, I said, this may go to dangerous places, because I want to bring people in from outside of the profession that will help architects understand what the rest of the world thinks, what clients think. I want to bring clients in. I want to bring, whoever in. And so, one of the goals here will be to have challenging topics, right? It'll be to have conversations that challenge the way that you think, and we expect pushback, right?
Yeah,
that's part of the conversation.
If you listened to that Seth Godin episode and you got angry as an architect, that's because of Architect the brand. That is exactly why you got angry, because that's what Seth thinks architects are.
I know. That's what made me mad. I know.
That's our fault. That's not Seth's fault.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a time maybe to bring up homework, because I've listened to that podcast episode twice, and I'll probably listen 2 more times before I talk to him, so I can really know what I'm talking about. But Leslie had said that we should maybe assign homework on Monday for Thursday, right? So if people know a certain person coming and they might want to listen to some podcasts on, or listen to their book in the meantime, that might be helpful.
Maybe,
If
maybe
people are
Jeff,
interested.
maybe you can, as part of the podcast, if it's going to be a Thursday session, maybe on when it's posted to the podcast, you can give some homework when you announce the next guest, because you can announce the guest on the podcast and say, hey,
Right.
on Thursday, Mike Michalowicz is going to be here. He's the author of Profit First. It's a book. You should go check it out. It's a book that you might want to learn. You can go to his website. Here's the website. And you do a little homework before Thursday shows up. And that could be part of the routine.
Exactly. Yeah. That'll show up in the pod, or sound up in the podcast. And also when we make the announcement on Monday, I'll make sure that we include, like, for instance, since we're on the topic of Seth Godin, I'll include the link to the Akimbo podcast that I've already referenced, that really kind of started that conversation. For Mike Michalowicz, we can, have a list of books or whatever. So yes, we can definitely assign. Leslie says,
I
didn't say assign.
Okay, I said assign. I'm all about assigning homework, so I guess it was.
Hey, Catherine's driving this, so
Leslie, you can't show up unless you do the homework. Sorry,
you have to do the homework. Just don't show up. But one thing I think is pretty interesting about this whole thing is that one thing, maybe people think architects are well, I won't even say what Seth Godin thought. I'll let you listen to it for yourself. But if people are interested in how architects think, they can listen to this podcast when it's a podcast and hear our take on these things, because it's not going to be closed, like you said, so people can actually get an insider's view on the way we actually do think.
Yeah. And I think that's exactly the point, right? Because if a guest comes on, so the format that we use today will be similar from week to week, right? Catherine and I will start the show. We'll introduce the topic. We'll talk about it a little bit. Then we'll bring a guest on. And the intent is that at the end, and today's a little bit different, but at the end, after we've had the conversation with the guest, we'll have still a few minutes to kind of break it down. What's your reaction? And of course, again, the recorded versions remain, and you can continue to comment wherever you are, LinkedIn or Facebook or wherever. You can continue that conversation even after it's not live anymore. But here's our guest's perspective on whatever the topic is. Some interaction, of course, with comments like we get all the time, and then we wrap it up with, what's the takeaway? How do you all feel about this? How do you all think about this?
Okay.
Leslie said, sorry, Leslie, I lost Leslie's comment. It reminded me of the movie Inception, Leslie. Sorry. Go ahead, Catherine.
I'm just saying that Jay's posting as Michelle, and that's just not cool. So only post as yourself. Moving forward.
No stealing identities.
Oh no. We'll do an episode on identity theft in architecture.
Yeah. Anyway, so what's the big takeaway for today, Jeff?
Well, I think the big takeaway is, first of all, thank you to all of you for participating in this. I say that every day, and I mean that every day, but thank you for sticking with it and helping us take it to the next level, because, as expected, a lot of these comments are coming via Facebook, but there are a good number that have come from YouTube and other places. I'm really excited. I know it's a challenge. To take the intimacy of the Entre Architect community Facebook group and try to grow it or extend it beyond those walls. But I do think it's important that we are able to grow the community and support people outside of the walls in Facebook. And I'll be completely honest with you. Mark gave a link a few minutes ago, entrearchitect.com/group. I use that link every single day because when I click that link, it takes me directly to that Facebook group. I don't see any other part of Facebook until Mark asked me to come on when we started the very first Context and Clarity Live. I probably hadn't logged into Facebook for 9 months or a year. I'm not on Facebook at all.
I'm sorry, Jeff.
But the beauty of it is I can just do that in Facebook. I can use that link. I can just do that. And I know there are other people that just have no interest in being on Facebook. And so that's another reason to do it this way, at least once a week, is to go meet them where they are. And if they find us on LinkedIn or somewhere else and want to join that Facebook community, that's great. If they want to remain on LinkedIn or somewhere else, hey, we're here to help. And I saw one of those comments earlier that they love whoever it was. And again, I apologize. Whoever said it said they love being able to help people nearly immediately by commenting and participating in these conversations. And to me, that's one of the most reaffirming things anyone has ever said. I mean, we have created this mechanism together where we can help people instantaneously. And I think that's just a beautiful thing.
Yep, that's true.
All right.
And just Edward, that was the takeaway, by the way.
Well, they might still be missing.
Edward
we don't
says
know
he's missing it. That's the takeaway.
That's the takeaway. The takeaway is we all need to strive. First of all, thank you for all of you that have striven,
I think.
Must have failed that English class. I don't know. Thank you for all of you that have built this community. And the takeaway is we've got to continue to support and grow the community, because even though there are I was having this conversation earlier today. A lot of you get a kick out of me bringing up books that I've read. Grant Cardone has a book called, what is it, Mark? 10X Formula?
10X
something.
10X.
Striven is apparently
we've got a lot of. That's what I said. Yep.
There you go.
That's why I'm here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Grant Cardone has a book that's called 10X something. Bright yellow cover, red and black graphics.
Somebody's going to post it in the comments.
There you go. Someone recommended that I read that book. And I'm going to be completely honest. I hated the book. I absolutely hated the book.
Okay. Cross that off.
I got 90% into the book, and in about a sentence or two, 90% into the book, a sentence, 10X rule. There you go. Thank you, Michelle. 90% into the book, he says, your greatest threat is, what's the word? Your greatest threat is obscurity. 10X driven. Your greatest threat is obscurity. And he expanded on that. He said, it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what you do. No matter how large your network is, in the grand scheme of things, it's zero. It's nothing. It's minuscule. And so I thought, you waited 90%, through the book to say that. You could have said that in the first paragraph and saved me 6 hours. But anyway.
No, but he wouldn't have a book, Jeff. That's
I know. That gets to the deeper reason. But that's true for Entre Architect. It's true for this community as well. Even though there are 7,000 members in the Entre Architect community Facebook group, there are 70,000 architects in the United States. Maybe it's more than that.
Yeah, I think there's 70,000 in Boston area. So yeah, there's got to be more.
Yeah, so there's 70,000. So that I think is something that we need to consider when we're thinking about this community. How do we support other architects that just haven't made it into the Entre Architect community Facebook group? And that's one of the reasons that I really wanted to, one of a myriad of reasons that I really wanted to expand this once a week into this format, because there are other people out there that we can help. And every single one of you that answers a question, that shares your experience, that tells a story, that's what you're doing, is that you're helping other people in the profession, and you're supporting the profession, and you're building a broader community. And I see this as an opportunity to hopefully even exponentially change the number of people that we're able to help. And that's my goal, period.
Love, learn, share.
There you go. I should have worn that shirt. You wouldn't be able to see it. But then I'd be out of uniform.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want that.
Would not.
Well,
All right.
okay.
With that,
Christian says 160,000 architects.
there you go.
Oh, yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. Is that just in the U.S. or worldwide?
It may just be a world.
Mr. Google.
Just yeah. That's
That's a
came.
lot.
Thank
That
you,
is a lot
Christian,
of
for going.
architects.
I think that's US.
It probably is, because AIA claims 90,000 members, I think, right? Or at least recently did. So
Wow.
I have those numbers somewhere,
Yeah.
but I'm not going to look them up right now.
okay.
How many
That's your
do we
challenge.
need? I mean, that's kind of a question. How many architects do we actually need? Do we need 160?
Well, there's a question. Get a guest.
That is
Oh, 116. That's
typo.
different. That's okay.
yeah, that's probably in the US. That is a great context and clarity topic, Catherine.
I see
I'm-
this Jay that says it's just in Vermont.
just in Vermont. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a good. Can we put that on the daily spreadsheet? How many
Yes.
do we need?
Yeah, we definitely can. And that's another great reminder. If you have an idea, if you're struggling with something, there's somebody else that's struggling with the same thing. If you have a question about something, there's someone else that has the same question. If you just learned something or just discovered something, there's someone else that needs to learn that or discover that. So send me a message, send Catherine a message, send Mark a message, LinkedIn, Facebook, whatever. Help us grow the list of topics based on what you need to know, what you want to know. So with that, I guess we'll wrap this up today. Mark, thank you.
You're very welcome. You're going to have to be a lot more strict on your real guests.
And we will
barely
be.
let Mark say anything.
Yeah.
You're
I
going
don't
to have to
know.
muzzle me.
No, we barely let you say anything. I'm saying it weren't a lot of questions that you got to answer from the group, but maybe we're just all used to having you around so much that we don't.
Yeah, everybody knows my story and how I feel.
Not that
about
we know
you all.
your story, but we're just like you're just like Jeff's brother or something showing up for the show. I mean, that's the way I
Sort of.
Yeah, pretty much.
yeah.
That works for me.
Yeah, we're going to have Taco Thursday today. Yeah. It's not Tuesday, sorry.
Well, Jeff, thank you very much for letting me be part of this first episode. And Catherine, thank you for stepping up and becoming co-host. It's an important role because there's no way Jeff's going to be able to do this by himself, which is why when we were putting this thing together and, we were talking about how we were going to make this happen, we ran into this, this problem with him trying to have these deep conversations with guests and trying to handle comments. And so we said, well, we need a co-host. And we both said, Catherine.
Yeah. Yep.
And so thank you. Thank you for being part of this.
Yeah.
Well, it's my pleasure so far. We'll see what happens when Seth Godin comes on and I have stuff to say.
Oh, the jury's out. No, it'll be good. I'm really looking forward. I'm looking forward to these conversations. And so, Mark and Catherine, again, thank you both. All of our audience, all of our faithful and new audience, thank you for joining us. Again, we will be back here in this format next Thursday, February 4th, with Evan Troxel, host of the Troxel podcast, co-host of ArchiSpeak, and we'll be talking about the way that technology is changing the profession of architecture. And again, we'll make some announcements. We'll assign some homework, get you started on Monday to prepare for that Thursday event. So look for that. And in the meantime, join me back inside the Entre Architect community Facebook group tomorrow, Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern. We'll be back to Context and Clarity Conversations, and same bat time, same bat channel, 4 p.m. Eastern. And I will announce tomorrow's topic as early as I possibly can tomorrow morning. Again, the preview is that we're going to talk about red flags and red flag warnings tomorrow. So I'll post that officially tomorrow morning. You can think about that. I know that you all have a lot to do. I know that you're busy. I know an hour of your time is very valuable. So I thank you for investing that with us today. And I hope that you've seen enough out of this today that you'll come back tomorrow and join that conversation tomorrow. And with that, again, thank you all. I appreciate each and every one of you. I see 200 comments, says Jay Caroli. I think that's amazing. And I really appreciate you keeping an eye on that, and appreciate every one of you for every single one of the comments. Let's do it again tomorrow. But until then, take care of yourself. Take care of everybody around you. It's still a crazy world, so stay well, stay safe. Take a little bit of time to breathe this evening. Don't take my word for it. Take somebody else's word for it, but relax a little bit, come back rejuvenated tomorrow, and let's do it again. Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate you. See you tomorrow.
Yeah.